Hi, today I'm going to share with you one of the most fundamental concepts for structuring your data. The best bit is that it's incredibly easy to understand and relevant to honestly every visualization you might create in Power BI or Excel. I bet this looks familiar. I see these reports all the time. For example, monthly sales, where you've got your month stretched across the column headers at the top, which makes it easy to read and quick to look at. Except if you want to create any kind of chart, it's like you're having a fight with that data. It's just not structured the way a computer system would expect for analysis. In the next few minutes, I'm going to share with you how to use two core tools within Power Query to restructure your data: Pivot and Unpivot. By the end of this video, not only will your data be structured correctly, but you're going to understand why it needs to be structured like that. And forevermore, you'll easily be able to create charts and visualizations in Power BI and Excel. If you're learning Power BI, there's a large chance the word pivot reminds you more of friends than it does of data structure. But it truly is a key concept to really understand to be able to unpick and structure your data correctly. Knowing when to use pivot or unpivot is truly what's going to unlock any data for you. It's what I see preventing people using Power BI and Excel to their full advantage. And honestly, the secret, it's really easy. Much easier than getting a sofa up the stairs. Okay, I'll stop with that reference. But it is. And when you learn it and know it, you can apply it any single place. It will suddenly click. And when somebody sends you pivoted data, you're going to know when and how to easily unpivot it. I'll explain what that means. Before we click a single button, you need to understand why we're talking about unpivoting data. So let's take an example. Here we have a wide table. It's got a product column, and then each column afterwards is a particular month, so that the values are spread across multiple different columns. As a human, this is really easy to read. I can scan across a product or look down a column forward to know that month. But that's not how computers think about data. And in fact, what we have here is the same data, the values, scattered across different columns. What computers like is one column for one particular type of data, and each row is a different observation. So we want all of our values in one single column. And to do that, we would move them and then label them where they had the appropriate months and what products were relevant to those values. And now, per row, we have a product, value, and month. And there we go. This is what is called a tall table. It's all the same data, but it's represented and formatted in a way that computers like. When you open Power Query, it looks exactly the same whether you get there from Power BI or Excel. Today, I'm going to go from Power BI. And in Power BI, I click Transform Data to open up Power Query. When I click Transform Data, Power Query opens up in its own standalone window. Here in Power Query, you'll see that I have a wide table, the structure of which mirrors the example that we looked at earlier on. I've got product name in my first column, and then each column afterwards is the month name. So we want to take this wide table and unpivot it. So to do that, I'm going to take my first month, January, select it, then hold down Shift and select my last month. And that's going to select all the 12 months in between. When I right click, it shows a number of unpivot options. I only want to unpivot the columns that I've selected, so I choose Unpivot Only Selected Columns. And just like that, you're going to see your data in a whole new structure. After we've unpivoted, we now just see two columns: attribute, where months were, and value instead of sales data. We want to rename these columns to something meaningful, like month and sales volume. And really, unpivoting is as easy as that. So we just click Close and Apply to save our changes and return to Power BI. In Power BI, we now have a lovely tall table that we can use to create visualizations. I'm really hoping that a light bulb has clicked for you. And now that you can think about all those times you tried to work with wide data, and you understand not only why it should be tall, but how to get there. If it has, I think you might enjoy some of my other videos. I release them every week related to Power BI and Excel, easy tips. But it's not just about understanding how you do something, but also why. So now that we've seen how you take wide data and turn it into tall data, we want to look at the polar opposite, pivot. Now, I bet you're wondering why we would want to pivot data if we've just learned that the gold standard is to unpivot so that it's tall. Well, the reason is because data that is pivoted is easy to read. If we wanted to pivot our data in Excel, we would literally use a pivot table. In Power BI, it's a little bit different. We use a matrix. If I add a matrix to my report canvas, then add product name to rows, month to columns, and sales data into values, you'll see that I've now pivoted the data that we've just unpivoted. You'll notice that the months are sorted alphabetically. You can rearrange them to be chronological, but there's a few more steps. I actually have a video about that, and I suggest that you check it out. Now, thinking about best practices of things that you can do to make this even easier and better for you. The first tip that I have for you is getting really familiar with your applied steps. This is the list down the side of Power Query that shows you each and every step that's been taken. In Power Query, there isn't an undo button, but rather you can work through and look at every single step that you have taken previously and either change it in that order or remove some. The next tip I have for you is to check your data types. Now, actually, this is not just relevant to pivot and unpivot, but when you unpivot or pivot, it's really good practice to make sure you check. If you've gone to all that effort to unpivot your data and make it tall, if it's accidentally picked up that your value, for example, is text and not a number, your chart still won't work. So, best practice, always check your data type. Lastly, it's really important to think about the order you approach data. So best practice is to make sure that you clean your data after you've restructured it. So when you get data for the first time, put it in the right structure and then go and look for areas that you might want to clean up, values you may want to remove or change. Now that you have lovely, clean, tall data, you're going to want to filter it. I recommend checking out my video about list slicers. If you want to be able to create hierarchies and add images to your slicers, have a look. There you go. It's there. Have a look.